When you hear about forbidden places, we aren't simply talking about your older sibling's bedroom who keeps locking you out, but rather areas protected by officials for your own safety. Hello everyone, welcome to Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm Melanie, the host for today's video, as we talk about the top 5 forbidden places on Earth more terrifying than Area 51. And for number 5, we have the Paris Catacombs. Paris, France is often referred to as the City of Love, with iconic buildings like the Eiffel Tower many dream to visit. But have you heard about the Catacombs of Paris? They are underground ossuaries, which is a site made to serve as the final resting place of human skeletal remains, but not only 1 or 2 remains, but more than 6 million people. It was first created as an effort to eliminate the city's overflowing cemeteries, and work began in 1774 after several basement walls collapsed around the Holy Innocents Cemetery, which gathered a sense of urgency. And from 1786, when night came, wagons would transfer remains from most of Paris' cemeteries to a mine shaft, but over years and years it was actually forgotten about. That was until it became a place for concerts and other private events in the early 19th century after further renovations and the construction of accesses around it. It was open to the public to visit from 1874, but since 2013 the catacombs have been managed by Paris Musees and only certain sections are open for the public to visit. But because it is like an underground maze down there with tons of skeletons everywhere, it is hard to fully regulate, and in 2004, police actually discovered a fully equipped movie theater in an area of the catacomb, which included a giant cinema screen, seats, projection equipment, and film reels of recent thrillers and film noir classics, plus a fully stocked bar and a restaurant with tables and chairs. And because it is located directly under the streets of Paris, there are hidden entries all around the city, with those who are curious can't help but to take a peek, which is extremely dangerous because they are mainly built through sandstone, which is soft and can collapse when brittle or dry, or even when it's saturated with water. There are tight and small tunnels which sometimes you need to go on your belly to get through. Plus, other risks include slippery or uneven terrain, low ceilings, falling debris, poor air quality, and so much more. And if you get lost down there, even with a map, there are still areas with 2 levels which can lead to falling, and you can't call anyone down there. And if you didn't come prepared with a flashlight, good luck. As interesting as I find the catacombs, just knowing 6 million skeletons are there is enough to keep me out for good. And at number 4, we have North Sentinel Islands. When you think of islands, you may think of tropical vacations filled with vegetation and sea life. But look anywhere but North Sentinel Islands, because this place is protected from the outside world for a very good reason. It is one of the Andaman Islands located in the Bay of Bengal and is about 8 kilometers or 5 miles long and 7 kilometers or 4.3 miles wide. The area is approximately 60 square kilometers or 23 square miles. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands Protection of Aboriginal Tribes Regulation 1956 prohibits travel to the island and any approach closer than 5 nautical miles or 9.3 kilometers. And if you're wondering why the public has to stay off the island and even keep a distance, it's because there are actually still a remaining tribal community living out there away from the world's advancements. In fact, they aren't protected against infectious diseases due to the likelihood that they haven't developed immunity. But just because it's prohibited, it hasn't stopped every single person from trying to sneak a peek at the island. Back in 2018, American missionary John Allen Chau wanted to spread Christianity to everyone, which included those on the isolated tribe. So he traveled to Port Blair, which is the capital of the Andaman Islands and Nicobar Islands, where in October he began to prepare by creating an initial contact kit, which included items like picture cards for communication, gifts, medical equipment, as well as other necessities. And in November, John attempted to visit in a fishing boat, which took him around 500 to 700 meters from shore, and the fishermen warned him not to go any further. But regardless, he canoed closer towards the island with a waterproof Bible. He had a few failed attempts, which eventually resulted in a boy piercing an arrow through John's Bible he held in front of his chest. But on November 17th, it was his final time visiting, as he instructed the fishermen to abandon him, which the fishermen later saw the islanders dragging John's body, and the next day saw his body being buried on the shore. The Indian officials actually made several attempts to recover John's body, but had to abandon those efforts after the risk between investigators and islanders were too great. And for our number 3, we have the Doomsday Vault. The Svalbard Global Seed Vault, also known as the Doomsday Vault, is located deep in an icy mountain on an island above the Arctic Circle between Norway and the North Pole, and holds great importance for the future. Surprisingly, it is a storage for seeds. Yes, you heard me right, it holds millions of seeds from more than 930,000 varieties of food crops, and they are stored in this vault. And 13,000 years of agricultural history, its main purpose is to provide a long-term storage of duplicate seeds conserved in gene banks around the world and provide security of the world's food supply. In events such as war, natural disasters, and even a pandemic, this vault aims to prevent the permanent loss of crops. Each country deposits copies of the seeds they hold in their own banks, and they remain property of the depositing countries, which is then withdrawn in the event that their own stockpile is compromised. In 2015, the vault was used to restart the International Center of Agricultural Research in the dry areas after the Alpo seed bank had been abandoned during the Syrian civil war. And in order to preserve the contents, the Arctic Vault is protected by nearly 400 feet of rocks with high ceilings, and according to those who work in the vault, because you're inside a mountain, there's hardly any sound and all you can hear is yourself. In fact, countries like North Korea even store their seeds in this vault in the same aisle as the South Korean seeds. The vault opens 3 times a year to accept new deposits from the other seed banks from around the world. Instead of flying there to see the place yourself, they actually have virtual tours online, and maybe I'll run into you there. And for our number 2, we have the Mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of the Qin dynasty, known as Shanxi Emperor from 1643 to 1661, has a mausoleum located in the Lintong district of China and was constructed over 38 years ago between 246 and 208 BCE. It sits beneath a 76-meter tall tomb, and the layout of the mausoleum is modeled on the layout of the capital of the Qin dynasty. There are thousands of statues located at this site, which is crazy because it wasn't discovered until 1974, and the emperor is buried and surrounded by terracotta warriors, and each figure is different. Some have horses and others have weapons, and they all hold details of realism. There are approximately 8,000 life-size statues of soldiers which all surround the mausoleum of Qin Shi Huang, and were built to protect the emperor in the afterlife, even though the emperor himself has traditionally been portrayed quite poorly. The tomb of China's first emperor has not yet been opened, and archaeologists share how they are afraid it is filled with traps. Sima Qian, who is a historian who lived around 100 years after the emperor and wrote a description of the mausoleum which read, "Palaces and scenic towers for 100 officials were constructed, and the tomb was filled with rare artifacts and wonderful treasure." But along with all the treasure, they also wrote how craftsmen at the time were ordered to make crossbows and arrows specifically to attack anyone who enters the tomb. But that's not all, because mercury and candles made from fat were talked about, which some fear was inside. Although scientists fear opening the tomb, they did measure mercury levels around the area of the mausoleum, and they were much higher than expected, which some believe the emperor drank and could have played a role in his early passing. Some things from the mausoleum have been uncovered, such as a 666-piece ancient armor, which was estimated to take around 440 days to complete by a skilled craftsman. Whether treasure is really hidden inside the tomb, maybe one day we'll know. And for our number 1 spot, we have Snake Island. This island, located off the coast of Brazil, lives up to its name because it is infested with thousands of deadly snakes. The area of this island is around 106 acres, and the terrain varies from bare rocks to rainforest. And Snake Island is the only natural home of the critically endangered venomous Bothrops insularis, also known as a golden lancehead pit viper, which actually eats birds. There is an estimated number of around 2,000 to 4,000 of this rare snake species, but within an hour of being bit, it can be fatal, which means you would have to make it to the hospital located off the island quickly in order to have a chance of survival. And if you're wondering how the snakes ended up trapped on this island, well, it's because of thousands of years ago, following the end of the last ice age, rising ocean levels disconnected the island from the mainland, and due to the evolutionary pressure, it allowed the snakes to adapt to their new environment, as well as an increasing for their population very quickly. Of course, they have a ton of snakes, but this island is one of the few islands that have 3 to 5 times stronger venom compared to any mainland snake, which makes makes it that much more dangerous. Plus, back in the early 1990s, a few people actually inhabited this island and was tasked with running the lighthouse, but according to a legend, this family passed due to the snakes, and since then, the lighthouse has been automated. And if you're one of those rare humans that actually want to visit this island, it is closed to the public for protection of both people and the snakes. It is only accessible by the Brazilian Navy and selected researchers, and those aren't baby tiny snakes but rather quite big ones with no predators on the island. But good thing is they don't swim, so they should hopefully stay on the island. Well, we have made it to the end of our list. Which place would you not even wish for your worst enemy to visit? And is there any other place on Earth you think we should have added to our list? Comment all your opinions because I would love to hear what you have to say down below. Anyways, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.